Welcome to Today on Broadway for Tuesday, July 27th, 2021. I am Tell Me on a Sunday podcast, Grace Aki.
And I'm arts and culture writer Ashley Steves.
I mean, as always, make sure that you're on our Patreon for Broadway Radio. That's patreon.com/Broadway Radio. It's not hard. Just click that link, baby. This is the top of the week for Ashley and I, and we've had long days.
Oh, it's been a Monday. It's absolutely been a Monday with a extra large capital M.
Extra large. I literally just wrapped with Broadway Records doing that live stream with Drew Gasparini and all of the morons from Moron Mountain. That's what they call themselves.
Okay. I was like, wow, harsh.
They're a bunch of morons. No.
Very harsh.
Affectionately, they are self-named the morons.
Nice. I like it.
But yeah, so it was super fun. You can watch it on YouTube. We had a blast. It did get away from me. The stream got away from me.
It's fair. There's a lot of moving parts there.
It was too much. But I guess we'll head right into the news because we have some exciting stuff at the end of this episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Hit it.
Let's do it. So it's a big day for theater today as a new chair is named to succeed David Henry Hwang and previously Ted Chapin. Broadway costume designer Emilio Sosa. Emilio is a Tony-nominated costume designer, having previously worked on The Gershwins, Porgy and Bess, Motown the Musical, and the upcoming Trouble in Mind. And they are the official new head of the American Theater Wing as the new chair. I mean, the more people of color in positions of power, the more, and in these historical institutions, the better off we are at creating a more equitable arts society. I mean, this is a big deal.
Yeah, this is really exciting. As you mentioned, any kind of position of power, but especially one that, we don't really like to say that award shows are important because they barely are, but they are important. And to have someone presiding over the wing, certainly, at least in theory, ushers in the potential for more people to be recognized for their work, more people of color to be recognized for their work. So this is great.
Yeah. And I also didn't realize that we needed a new chair. I was like, oh gosh, that's right. The American Theater Wing. Let's go.
Yeah, right. I lose track of this stuff.
Exactly. And of course, we've got the impending Tonys coming up. So just saying.
What are those?
I know. Does Matt still do? Because he doesn't really do it on the shows that I'm on.
No, he doesn't. Up? He gave up. He gave up the day of, just like that. He quit. But are the Tonys really happening? We'll find out, I guess.
To quote your favorite musical, Tony, Tony, Tony.
Exactly.
There you go. All right. So I feel like this is more of your cup of tea, but I'm kind of unsure. So I'm kind of testing the waters here. But casting has been announced for the upcoming Exorcist trilogy from Universal. It's going to star Tony winners Leslie Odom Jr. and Ellen Burstyn. And it's the first in a new set of films to be released in theaters in 2023 with the 2 sequels that are going to be on streaming services. Is that your vibe, Ashley?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, cool. I was I have a feeling in the world, but I don't know if it's true.
Yeah, I'm a horror movie slut for sure. I'm not big on Exorcist movies, though of course the original is, the pinnacle. But it's Leslie and Ellen. How can you not want to watch that? I'm cautiously optimistic because I kind of have to be. So I guess we'll see in 2023 when we get the first one. But I'm especially in, we talked about One Night in Miami and Leslie being in that. I am always thrilled to see him get more screen time, just because, he's a beautiful and lovely person, but also he's immensely talented and I think he should be in everything.
No, we doubly agree.
Yeah.
We could have a separate podcast about how we feel about
Leslie Odom Jr. podcast. So.
Which, by the way, just as a shout out, you guys should stream his album. Oh my gosh.
Always.
His solo album is so good. I think he has a Guilty Ones cover from Spring Awakening that I think is one of the best covers of all time.
Yes.
It's very sexy. We're going to take a moment and talk about our sponsor.
Who needs segues?
Who needs segues? I am certainly not good at them. We're going to talk about our sponsor for this week, ExpressVPN. So I don't know if you knew, but I am actually not tech savvy.
What?
And it keeps getting worse. Yeah, like I cannot keep up with everything that's going online. And especially when it comes to like safety, I feel like one thing that I've learned in the most recent years, especially last week, is that using the internet without ExpressVPN is a dumb choice. It's like being on a train and making a phone call and putting it on speakerphone. No one does that.
I hate them. I hate it all. They're the worst people.
It's unsafe and rude.
It's both of those things. Yeah, if you're tech savvy or not, you need a VPN. Internet service providers like Comcast and Verizon, they know every single website you visit, and those ISPs can sell this information to ad companies, tech giants. They'll use that data to target you. Also unsafe and rude.
Yeah, when it comes to staying secure online, ExpressVPN is kind of the best option. I mean, they're the #1 rated VPN by CNET, Wired, The Verge, and it creates a secure encrypted tunnel between your device and the rest of the World Wide Web so that nobody else can see what's going on. All the things that you're doing online, that's for you, baby.
And nice and safe.
Yeah, nice and safe. It's incredibly easy just to fire up the app, click one button. It works on your phone, your laptop, your tablet, your smart TV, even your router, so that everyone who's sharing your Wi-Fi, including your downstairs neighbor, they can be protected.
I hope not. They can get their own. But we keep talking about ease of use. We've talked about how much coverage it has across different devices. Depending on where you are in the world, you can't watch things on other streaming services in other countries. But with ExpressVPN, you can. I recently recommended, as I've talked about before, In the Heights in Canada can't be watched. Got a friend in Canada, can't use it on HBO Max, but with ExpressVPN, you can.
Oh my gosh. So a spoiler. That's amazing. Secure your online activity by visiting expressvpn.com/BroadwayRadio today.
That's expressvpn.com/BroadwayRadio, and you can get an extra 3 months free.
One more time, that's expressvpn.com/BroadwayRadio. Also, I want to know, Ashley, like, what's your Wi-Fi password? No, what is your Wi-Fi name? Like, have you renamed your Wi-Fi router?
I haven't renamed it. I'm boring because it's a pain and I don't want to deal with it.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
There goes that bit.
I'm sorry, have you?
Well, my Wi-Fi password / router name, not the password, I guess.
Yeah, not the password.
But my name is Georgia Peach Pork Buns.
Oh, very nice.
It used to be Gilmore Girls themed. Those used to be funny, but I don't know. I felt like Dragonfly Inn was kind of lackluster. So I look forward to hearing what your new Wi-Fi name is.
Yeah, I'll get to it soon. Don't worry.
All right. Well, the movie adaptation of Everybody's Talking About Jamie is coming. I had forgotten that was coming this year, so I'm really excited to talk about it. They're going to have an opening night premiere on the 39th annual Outfest with an outdoor screening on August 13th at Cinespia at Hollywood Forever in Los Angeles, and the rest of the world can stream it on Amazon September 17th. How exciting.
I'm really looking forward to this finally. It feels like it's been a while since it was.
It has been a while.
Yeah, and now we're finally getting it, and I will be absolutely delighted. I'm glad it's happening at Outfest too. That makes me very happy.
Also, did you know that Bianca Del Rio is also in this version? Because they were performing in the one on the West End for like a short stint.
I know.
Like, they're in the movie.
Preserved
in
that
time.
role. Love to see it.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of things we'd love to see, Maestro Music, Musicians United for Social Equity, and artists striving to end poverty have launched Get to Work. I saw this all over the Twitter and all over Instagram. Shout out to Spotco. And it's a new website dedicated to creating a more inclusive future for the theater industry. So the Get to Work website includes like 19 community partners, and the site is basically going to gather reports and statistics and provide action items for workers and fans to take part in industry change. I know a lot of people that have used Maestra in the past couple of months,
love them.
Specifically, especially for like femme identifying musicians.
Hello.
Here, just yeah, exactly. Which I know you are one. I mean, there's like a whole list of partner organizations that are involved: Asian American Performers Action Coalition, Black Theater Coalition, Black Theater United, Broadway Advocacy Coalition, Broadway for Racial Justice, Broadway Women's Alliance, the Dramatists Guild, the Lilies, Maestro Music, Ring of Keys, She NYC Arts. Subtle plug for She NYC Arts and She ATO.
Familiar.
Hey. So, I was just so excited to see that this type of site is being created because I think it'll help launch sites that are similar with different sanctions of theater performers. I don't know how you feel about this, Ash, but like.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And the entire list of groups that you just named and organizations that you just named, I mean, we've been trying to prop them up, especially over the past year and a half, but I mean, forever and always, because they're just doing amazing work. I 100% agree with you as far as I feel like creating something like this will lead to more. I think that's the intent. I think the intent of anything like this is always to create more space. So I'm thrilled to see it, and more, please more.
Yeah, exactly. So the more we can see this, and then I hope that it trickles. That's really my key, is that I hope that it trickles down to regional, and then we get to like community theaters, because the more expansive like internet and like networks that we can include artists on, the better it'll be for theater all around.
Definitely.
So I had the excellent opportunity, because I am a part of Broadway Records as well as Broadway Radio, to discuss the new concept album Edge of the World by Ethan Slater and Nick Blaemire. And the reason I'm so excited to bring you guys this interview is not only because, like, cool, I get to marry my two worlds of Broadway Radio and Broadway Records, but because this is a freaking good album.
Yeah. I'm the one who listened. I haven't listened to the album. I am the one who listened to the interview though, to edit it. And I have to say, as soon as I was done, I'm like, I gotta hear it. I am so excited. I love both of them. I've seen them both perform many times. So to have them come together to make something that just sounds really cool is really exciting.
It's a really great concept. And again, like, the people that have been able to create art in this time, I felt like a lot of people had the pressure to, but also, which kind of sucked. But the other half of that coin was that people had the space and time to like take care of themselves and go, hey, I really care about this project that I've been working on in my brain forever. Let's collaborate on Zoom. And so they talk about that a lot. And, you're going to get like a taste of that interview. You can get the full interview if you're on our Patreon, which I highly recommend you listen to, not because I like to hear my own voice, but because they have a lot of great things to say, which Ashley, I feel like, can attest to. So you can hear the rest of it. Her expert editing choices are going to be made on that, but you can hear little snippets of that at the end of this particular Today on Broadway. It's brought to you by Broadway Records, Ethan Slater, Nick Blaemire. The album comes out August 6th, everywhere you can stream music. Here you go. Take a listen to us. So I'm super excited to talk to you both about your new album, Edge of the World. And I have so many questions. It's coming out August 6th. You can get it kind of anywhere that you listen and stream and buy music. Hopefully you buy it. That's how music works. Does that help you guys out? Like, does that be better than streaming?
I mean, if it was for the money, we wouldn't be doing it. It's a pretty
like a true artist.
Yeah. It's not for the money, but if you can and want to buy it, dope.
It costs money to make, and we'd love to pay it back.
Oh, good. Great. I've gotten to listen to the album. I know that some people have gotten some you've already mastered it. It's done. And it's so beautiful. I want to ask you a little bit about how it was to create a concept musical in quarantine. Like, how were you guys able to communicate all of the things that you need to communicate when you're creating an album?
Ooh, I mean, yeah, right. That was the big question, I think. And I'm sure it's I would say a couple of things. One is that we started working on it before quarantine. So we were in similar headspaces about it. We knew what we wanted to do and what we needed to get done. But then we somehow had to cross thousands of miles over the internet in order to make it actually happen, and jump on Zooms and work in a Google Doc and all of that kind of stuff to sort of make the collaboration happen. I feel like the biggest thing about this was actually the recording itself, which I feel like you've experienced doing these interviews and your podcast, doing Tell Me on a Sunday.
Oh yeah, alum. Tell Me on a Sunday, alum.
But it's it's this thing where you're telling stories over the internet. When we did it, it was in person, but I know now it's different. And so I think one of the things that we were really fortunate about was that like a lot of schedules were freed up. So we got to work with some amazing people and do it, across the country. I don't know. I'm just sort of rambling because it was a really weird, hard experience. That's like a little bit hard to like solidify and get my hands around, but like somehow in the expanse and like way too far distances and never being in the same room, this was like a really awesome opportunity to connect with people and feel like we were in the same room. And so I'm incredibly grateful for that.
Totally. Okay. I mean, it's real proof of like where there's a will, there's a way. And I think like we're all very much, trying to answer that question. I think when the bottom dropped out for all of us in March 2020, it was this question, I think, for all creators, especially people who were midstream on stuff, what is the right way to sort of honor this moment and not like, just like toss away something you're working on, or in the opposite direction, like rush it out. I think we both felt like, okay, so there's a version of this. Like we love concept albums, Superstar, Tommy, and then like more modern ones like Myths and Hymns and whatever. And it's like, okay, so if we love those as much, maybe that's a version of like an open workshop where we're showing you kind of where we are in process, but like making something that feels like it stands on its own as an indie pop album. And that is sort of implies a live visualization of it eventually, rather than like trying to create like a Zoom version or like a movie in a year and a half or whatever. It became like really about how do we simulate being in the same room. And that was like the amazing part, was the way that people started playing off each other. Like the pianist would be playing off the drums and the bassist, and they would never have been playing at the same time. Like all of this got arranged piece by piece. And that was just like a mind sort of, numbing experience. And then also like mind altering, because it was like, oh my God, there is aliveness here. Like they are responding to each other, even though,
Right. We would like replay things. Like somebody would play a part and then, Marco playing keys would hear it and be like, hey, I actually want to redo this because like if I'd known you were playing that, I would have redone it this way. And so like there was that sort of liveness on stage feeling, which was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Because like when you're in the room, you can literally just look at somebody and not even have that conversation. Just be like, let's go back.
Yeah, right.
But then you're like, I have to find the words and articulate like, hey, that phrase was kind of like dumb. And then I'm not saying that any of your music is dumb.
No, but I get it.
It's just this weird thing, like you can usually look at somebody and have that conversation, but when you're not doing that, you're kind of learning as an artist how to articulate with other people that are doing the same thing, creating the same art.
Which is good because I think one of the real challenges of collaboration is finding a way to communicate that inspires what you want out of your collaborators. And I think Ethan and I, especially because we've been sort of the ones trying to lead the creative process, have really had to be on the same page and sort of mind meld. And a lot of the time, like one of us can't be there for a note session or whatever. And it's really about just like trying to create that collective telepathic headspace that you're describing, to simulate it as best as we can.
Yeah.
And this was like a real crash course in it. Like, I feel like that's always sort of true. And this felt like, learn.
Well, because we're taught, hopefully, by somebody how to collaborate physically. And so we're never taught like how to collaborate or communicate, like literally what we're doing right now. So I can't imagine how it was.
New world, totally new world.
Yeah. I mean, who knew? I'm curious now because you guys were just talking about it. When were you like, we should like fall in love and write a musical together? When did that happen?
Married.
Yeah.
Well, we met working on SpongeBob.
Were you in that?
Yeah. I was in SpongeBob. Nick was also in SpongeBob.
The Out of Town. Got it.
Out of Town.
I was out of town. Ethan also was in it.
Good.
I was in it as well. And Nick was also in it. And we met doing like early development workshops, which is like the best. It's like my favorite part of anything is like, you're just like in a room trying to make things happen and like trying to, we were talking about this the other day, trying to like just like create a vibe, like create the vibe. And so in like working to create that vibe, we both like picked up on each other's vibes and we're like, yo, you're awesome. And I knew Nick as a writer, and I was, you know, still in school, and Nick was gracious enough to like meet me as a writer as well. And, yeah, and I think we were just like, let's work on something together. And then I had been working on this thing, and I asked him for help, and he was like, actually, I think I know how to make this better. And that's when we started working on Edge of the World together.
It's a tricky thing, right? Because like it's so vulnerable, and when people show you their work, it's just like it's a really big honor, because it's very much like, you know, you're gonna, whether or not they take your advice, you're gonna shape their decision making process, and it's just. It's kind of a lot of responsibility. And so I get really nervous about it when people ask me for help. But with Ethan, I just like really trusted him right from the beginning. He's a great guy. And I knew I was working as an actor. And then I listened to the thing, and it's like, no, I felt like pulled to it, like immediately. I was like, I know what this wants to feel like at the end. And if I can help with any sort of outside eye, bring the granules of what Ethan had started with to, you know, fruition, then like that, it's sort of a wonderful position to be in, where like, unlike a version where two people come up with an idea together and are equal sort of shepherds in that, like I had this kind of relinquished responsibility where Ethan had like built this world, and then it was like, okay, well, now how do we make this world complete and land the emotional punch? And that was it was just like a really healthy version of partnership, because I didn't feel like it's more on Ethan than to push back against like, well, I think this from the outside, and so you're inside of this, and what do you think? And then all of a sudden, you know, I became part of it, and it was just like a very organic blending of voices.
So can you guys give me like a brief kind of summary synopsis of what the show is about? Do you mind doing that?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'd rather not.
I'd rather.
No, that's, yeah, of course. Nick, do you want to do it? Do you want me to do it?
I'll do it. So
all right.
I know yours. I'm going to try to do mine. I don't even know what mine is yet. So it's the story of this guy named Henry, played by the great Norbert Leo Butz, who is a research scientist, and he takes his son, Ben, out of society to remote Alaska, this area where there's just nobody for miles and miles, and to kind of just like start over. And in the process of that, you know, he's taken his son away from everything that he knows, and his son sort of goes into his imagination to cope with his loneliness. And through the process of that, starts realizing the difference between a father's conception of the world and the version of the world that a dad passes down to their son, and the world that this son is experiencing on his own. And the clash between those two sort of leads to a clash between the son and the father, and asks some questions about, you know, what gets left out of the story that parents tell us. And that was
everything that they want to leave out.
Yes, right. Anything they want. And we find that out really late. I mean, that's just a truth about all of us, right? Is that like parents are doing their best, but they're fallible humans. And by the time that you realize their fallibility, you are already ingrained with their lessons. And so that was a really fascinating idea of like, how do we musicalize that? And like, can the songs sort of have that kind of unreliable narrator in them? And can we feel any of those exchanges in an album? Because I think, one thing we're really interested in is this idea of silence, and that is there maybe not a book to this show? Is it all done physically in silence in between the numbers, and that the numbers are these X-rays in on what the characters are feeling? about this like huge change that they're dealing with.
But here I am, surviving every single day. It's hard to imagine living any other way. And as I try to build a life, one that's real and simple, it's hard to keep a hold of it, 'cause life is just a ripple. And as I try to see more clearly, peer behind the curtain, I'm troubled by this fear of mine, that nothing here is certain. Whoa!
I want to ask you about the song Real and Simple, because like when I first heard it, I went, oh, this seems real, Ethan. Like, I know that the show is like not autobiographical, but is also autobiographical. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah. A couple of things about it. One is that like the ways that it's not autobiographical are like, I think pretty self-explanatory, like never moved to Alaska, wasn't raised there. Henry isn't really my dad, but like one of the things that happened in my life when I was a kid, when I was 7, is that my mom died. And that was like a really, it's like the big question that I've always been trying to answer with my life, right? It's like the first thing that like became this big question mark. And I didn't really realize that I was doing that in sort of every iteration of anything I would write. But then this one was sort of an explicit exploration of that. And like, I think the album's really fun and it has some like real fun vibes to it, but it's also this like story about grief and loss and how you deal with it as somebody who's a child, who's Ben's age, which was how old I was when my mom died, give or take, versus Henry, his father. And so a lot of Henry, he's not my dad, but a lot of what I wrote in Henry is me trying to empathize with my dad and trying to like understand what was going through his mind, trying to raise kids in the wake of this like tragedy, this really horrible thing. So like that is like where this show comes from, is like this place of trying to understand my dad and like my deep love and admiration for him. And also this like sort of maybe obvious metaphor that as a kid, I didn't know what to do with this big like hole in my life. And so I was creating things to fill it in. And that's why there's so much imagination in this world and that feeling of isolation, and yet like finding community within that isolation. In Edge of the World, he like creates these friends of his wolf friends. And, anyway, so I think that's like my best sort of explanation of how it's both not autobiographical and, incredibly personal in a sort of kind of blunt way.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. You know what I mean? Like it's, how do we find ways to tell our stories and not like, also we're telling a new story, but at the same time, like there's so much a part of you and in the art that you create, right? So you kind of have to balance it all without breaking you in half, because that can happen.
Well, I think actually that's a great point, because, for everybody involved, right? The artist and the audience, it's a processing mechanism. Like you're using the art to figure out the imaginary. You're using the imaginary to figure out the real, and then it becomes real. And the people who see it graft their own imaginations and their own realities onto it. And we get to like tumble that down the hill. And so for me coming in, it was both feeling like, I really want to protect Ethan and Ethan's story from feeling like this needs to be like an exorcism in some way, because I think there's also just a really fascinating, like, actual plot in this idea of a dad taking a son out of society, and what society and isolation and nature, sort of how they compete for our attention and our allegiance. But also, I do think that we just, as humans, have a lot of trouble talking about death and talking about like really communing with the idea of our temporary time. And we all just sort of, act immortal until something terrible happens, and then
surprise.
Right. You act surprised. So it's like, if this could be a processing mechanism for that, for the audience, it certainly has been for me. And like after the year we've had, to be making this album in the middle of all of that, it became a processing mechanism for that. Yeah. And it's just like, it's such a, a universal thing that we all share that is really, really hard to talk about. So going to a play about it or listening to an album about it is actually a way of letting people deal with it in private, rather than like having to, get together and sit in a circle like a self-help group or something.
No, it's too much. That's why we watch movies. We're like, oh, cool. Yeah. You did it for me.
You did it for me. I hope it's stuck.
Yeah. Nick, tell me about Space Dogs. Tell me about like all the other stuff that you're doing right now, because I get an email every day from MCC and I'm like, yes, I really like this graphic and I really like that this is happening. Please tell me about it.
I appreciate it. Well, I mean, the strangest thing is that Ethan and I are sort of both in the same position in that like we both got these like really exciting sort of calls right before the pandemic to do work that felt like, oh, we're really taking a turn in our careers and getting to do something really new for both of us. And so for me, I wrote this show called Space Dogs that is a two-man show that I wrote with my buddy Van Hughes, and it's about the dogs that went into space in the 50s and 60s in Russia. Yeah. And it's a true story that got mostly declassified in like 2002. So there's like a lot of stuff that was not being told to the public for the 20th century. And it's just like a really weird kind of like Wayne's World, TED Talk, Lonely Island kind of take on this like very tragic, strange Cold War space race true story. And like I love dogs very much. And so we got the yes from MCC on March 9th, 2020. And we were just like in hysterics about how excited we were, and then it went away. And what was so cool was that MCC was really like, and I think all of us, everyone was just like, we need to like keep our hopes alive because it's going to drive us through this time. Mm-hmm. And then thankfully they stuck with it, and now we're going to do it in January in their small space. And we're like putting together designers right now, and it's just it's really freaking exciting.
It's really exciting. That makes me happy. The fact that you were like, how do I Wayne's World is how we sell it. Yeah. Like that's exactly what we're gonna do. Swings all around.
Swings all around.
Swings all around. Ethan, the last time we spoke in the face, I would say was when you were like, hey, I'm doing Assassin. And I was like, okay, cool. And then they, Classic Stage Company put up tickets, and I was like, immediately buy. And then the world fully shut down. And I was like, I swear to God, if I don't get to see Gabby Gavinson and Ethan doing Assassins, I will freak out. So it's back on. I'm super excited about it. Tell me, like, have you guys like rehearsed? Have you been like getting back into it? How's that going?
We did like 2 weeks of rehearsal before the world shut down, and those 2 weeks were awesome and absolutely terrifying. I mean, I love playing guitar. I love it. I play, actually over the past year and a half, I've been playing absolutely every day. But I've been playing absolutely every day over the last year and a half, because those first 2 weeks of rehearsal, I was like, yeah, I'm a guitar player. I showed up, there's Sondheim music, and I was like, yeah, I can play this. It's Assassins. I know this music. It's not like the hardest Sondheim music. And Ethan was wrong. It is so hard. And it was like such an amazing challenge. So I was in rehearsal all day, like being surrounded by these actors of whom I'm in awe, and I love their work and I love their personalities. And then I would go home and I would just like practice for 2 or 3 hours because like this, I felt like I really had to rise to the occasion. And I've spent the last...
Stop. You fully deserve and should be there in that room.
Thank you. But has any actor ever played this music while they're singing it? I mean, that feels like a new thing.
Mm-hmm.
I definitely, not in any production that I've seen on in person or on YouTube or on recordings. And
there's no Reddit thread for people that have done this.
Right.
What a niche Reddit thread that is.
It exists.
Are Broadway musicals with instruments Yeah.
Yeah.
It was just like such an exciting challenge and like what felt like the exact kind of turn that I want my career to take, like Nick was talking about. Like this is pretty new in that way. Mm-hmm. And so I, in terms of preparing to come back to rehearsal, I haven't really known exactly what the deal was going to be. And we are coming back in the fall. It's super awesome. But I have been like periodically coming back and like practicing the music. And I got myself a mandolin, which happens to be right next to me.
Yeah.
Because I have to play mandolin in it, which is awesome. But I didn't play until this year. So, it's just been like, I am pretty thrilled that we're going to be able to do it and that people are going to be able to see it. But mostly that we're going to like get to redo rehearsal. The one other thing that I'll say about Assassins, at risk of being long-winded, is that we went into that rehearsal process being like, yeah, this is really relevant. There's like white male violence is like a historic problem. Like, it's just like really bad. And that was something that we were sort of focused on. And then, of course, we like closed down. And then January 6th is sort of the liminal space in which these assassins live together, right? Like Assassins has this sort of liminal space kind of vibe. And it was just sort of the thesis was proven in this new way. And so I'm really excited, and I don't know what this is going to look like, but I'm excited about the prospect of going into rehearsal and, starting from scratch and throwing out those 2 weeks and seeing like, what is the world that this show is happening in now? So I'm really looking forward to that.
It's great that you're going in with like fresh eyes coming from the world that we've been in. I feel like a lot of people are trying to do this thing where they're like, all right, just got to reset and go back to day one. I'm like, no. Take what you've learned. Take what you've learned.
Please. I mean, that's the scariest thing is that I honestly don't know. I think we're all maybe a lot bit scared that we're not going to return to a better world. And, the responsibility is just on us. It's on all of us to like, just hold ourselves accountable and everybody else we're around accountable to like really practicing what we preach, because it's been so out of balance for so long. And it does feel like now, and this is the thing that excites me about it, is that, the art that is going to resonate because it responds to this moment and it responds to all of this stuff that's rumbling. And like, that's certainly something with Space Dogs too, where like we started writing it, it was very much about, I'm not a puppet, you're a puppet. And like the Putin of it all. And now like we have billionaires in space, like today. And so, it's like this idea of the great beyond and the Space Force and all these things that will, I think like Edge of the World. And I think like the art that we admire, it's saying it without saying it that works the best, so that the audience can put those pieces together and that they can, make some decisions about how to feel about it. And that's when theater really works.
Yeah. I mean, audiences, they want to relate it to themselves the whole time anyways. Every audience, myself included, is selfish. So we want to relate it to our own lives. And that's what we get to do here. That's what I really enjoyed also about Edge of the World, is because I've dealt with like parental grief and all that stuff. And I just was like, I did want to and need to hear this. And I think that everybody does, because we all experience grief in different ways, even if it's, a family member, or it's, your favorite pet, or somebody that you really admire. So I really appreciate this album. It's beautiful. I'm not just saying that because I got to listen to it early. Like, it really is really beautiful. So I'm excited for everyone else to hear it, and they can hear it everywhere August 6th. So you all should check it out. Thank you guys for joining me so much. This was great.
Grace, you're awesome. Thank you for having us.
Thank you guys so much for listening to that. You can get the rest of the interview if you're on our Patreon. I highly recommend it. It's gorgeous talking to them. I love these boys, and the album is so very beautiful. But thank you for listening to Today on Broadway. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Broadway Radio. Don't forget about our Patreon. That's patreon.com/Broadway Radio, where you get the news before everybody else and exclusive interviews. You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at It's Grace Aki. Ashley, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at No This Is Ashley.
Thank you guys so much. We will see you tomorrow.